Is it on YouTube? Connect streaming software to go live. I did. Oh, there it is. Yeah, we're live.
Cool.
Look at that. That's neat.
Move yourself around
Welcome,
the wall,
everybody.
Zach.
I
I
know. Good
thank
job,
you. I
Zach.
know. Look at this. I know. And we have pretty good quality is much better.
Yeah.
So we're good. We're off to a great start. But anyways, welcome to another week in review with the Summit Crew. I didn't say Summit Success Series this week. Uh, this is where we unpack our week. We go over our grow or die moments. We highlight small businesses, and then we dive into of our Summit Chasers frameworks and how we have helped clients and how we've helped so many others. And we're very excited this week because we're going to have it's actually going to be a continuation of what we talked about last week, which is diving into our Summit Laws of Leadership. And we're very excited to talk about the next two, 3 and 4. If you want to know what 1 and 2 is, go back and watch the one from last week. It was not live. This one's live. I just sprung this on the team. This is going to be live today. So sorry.
It's okay.
Oh,
Oh, cool. Okay. Sometimes I have to be careful. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking on ice. I gotta like because like we're doing this today. No, now we're doing that today. So, but anyways, let's talk about some of our grow or die moments from the week. How was our week, Adrena? What were some grow or die moments?
okay. We're starting with me this week. I wasn't expecting
Yeah.
that. I'm so used to Chrissy going first. My grow or die moment, I'm gonna go personal as I sat yesterday for an hour and a half cleaning green Play-Doh out of the carpet in our kiddo's room. So for those of you who don't know, Zach has two kids. So they're essentially my step kiddos, unofficially, but might as well be my step kids. And it was a lesson that I learned that if your children are playing quietly, go check on what they're doing. And maybe don't wait months to clean the green Play-Doh out of the carpet. So just being much more mindful when you got those little ones and they're just being so quiet and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got some peace and quiet, I can go work, I can go do what I got to do. Not always the case. Go check in on them, go see what they're doing, pay attention, and use vinegar. Don't use a blow dryer. I used a blow dryer and I burned a hole in our carpet. And then yeah, because I was like, oh, I can melt the Play-Doh because I thought that might be a thing that could work. So I did
I
that.
thought it
And
was a
then
great idea.
you did. I asked you, I ran it by you and you're like, yeah, let's try it.
I was impressed. I was like, yeah, like, get it.
Yeah, no, it melt the carpet
Yeah.
instead. So then what works for anybody who has children and they play with Play-Doh on the carpet is vinegar, cold water, and dish soap. Works an absolute treat. That's my
And
grow
that's
or
been
die
in there forever. Like that was
for
caked
so long. Yeah.
in there, and like
For
we were
probably
up
a
there, we
few
were cutting it
months.
with the knife. Yeah, that
Oh
was
my
Yeah.
god.
that was a mess. But that's a good. You know what? That's an honest grow or die moment. That's a relatable grow or die moment, and absolutely,
Yeah.
that's funny though because when they're quiet, and we realize that they've been quiet for a little bit, we're like, oh no. Like
Yeah.
it's so much worse. Like if they're loud and screaming, it's like okay, we know exactly what they're doing.
Exactly.
We can like picture it. But when they're quiet, it's they're like they're doing something that they don't want us to know that they're
Oh
doing.
my
Mhm.
god.
Mhm.
Like
What were they
that's
doing? Like putting it in the rug, or they were just
So
playing on the rug?
Mason was making coffee with he like kept going into the bathroom and getting water and I still didn't think like I should probably go see where he's making his Play-Doh coffee at. But I didn't. But so he had like a whole mixing station and then he clearly had like very wet Play-Doh and just decided to smush it into the carpet
I
for
imagine.
I don't know, maybe it was like the saucer that the coffee cup was gonna go in. I don't know. But that's what he kept saying that day. He's like, I'm making coffee and I was like, cute, have fun.
he's hey, you know what? He wanted to open a coffee shop. He's an entrepreneur. You know,
Love
at
it.
the spry age of 4 years old, I
Yeah.
you know things are gonna happen. That's fine.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I love it. Chrissy, grow or die moment.
Well, I think this week, so it's St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone.
It is. Happy St. Patty's.
Hmm.
We had a really big cultural weekend. So on Friday, we went to go see the Wolf Tones play their final shows in New York. And so this is their farewell tour in New York. And I learned a lot about Irish history this weekend because they are this band that's been together for the last 60 years. And they really wrote a lot of like a lot of their music is based in the time of the hunger strikes in Ireland and a lot of like the IRA, a lot of
Mhm.
what was going on with the troubles in the 80s, 70s and 80s. And so it was a lot of like really deep Irish history. And it wasn't even that long ago, it was like within the last, 40 or 50
Mm-hmm.
years. And so it just was a really good um kind of like grow moment for me because it was just like a good really relating a little bit more about what is what is happening in recent history in a lot of our in a lot of countries around the world. So it was a good weekend.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. How is it big in New York? Like St. Patrick's Day, like you go to some of these major cities. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously Boston, like
Hmm.
Chicago, it's huge. Is Chicago the one where they
They dye the river
basically
green.
dye the river? That's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how crazy are we? Let's dye an entire river.
Yeah. So
Like there's no repercussions.
New York
It's
is
crazy.
huge. We have such a big Irish population here,
Oh, huge.
like
Yeah.
Irish American, but also Irish. And so that was really fun at the Wolf Tones concert too, because there was a lot of people who live in New York from Ireland. They work here, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really like such a good energy. Like people were just partying in the venue. We were at the town hall in New York City on 46th, I think, between 6th and 7th. But it was just like really fun. People were treating it like they were at a pub, like listening
Yeah.
to their
Mm-hmm.
music. So it was really fun. The parade is huge. My husband marches every year. This was his 20th parade. I
Wow.
posted some pictures on Instagram and stuff, but I'll send them over to you guys in text if you want. But it's really good. And the fire
Yeah.
department marches, they have like three different sections. They have the Emerald Society, they have they hold 343 flags for all the firemen that died on that September 11th. And then they also have the
Mm-hmm.
Green Berets, the PD marches, the sanitation marches, like all the high schools and colleges and stuff. So it's a huge parade. Um, and yeah, we go every year. I usually take off from work actually to go to the parade for St.
That's so
Patrick's
cool.
Day. Yeah,
That's wild.
it's super
What
fun.
was it? Boston? Where was the Boondock Saints? Like Boondock Saints? Where was that based? Was that Boston?
Oh my God, I have no idea what you're talking about.
It was
I
the
don't
it's
either.
a movie, but it's based on like the Irish, like the gangs that are in. I think it was Boston, but
Mhm.
I was thinking of like, okay, where's like the highest Irish population? But yeah, they're kind of all over the East Coast.
Boston is super Irish too. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah. Have you ever watched
that's
Gangs in
cool.
New York? That's like the history of New York City.
Gangs in New
Yeah.
York. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, there's another one too. Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
movies about it. That's cool. I
Hmm.
love it.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn. Grow or die moment. So I mean, this is kind of, and this is a thing that's kind of always gets reiterated as more things get put onto one's plate. Well, as you can see, my bookshelf's gone. We sold it, and we're literally selling everything, and it's starting to look pretty bare in here.
Hmm.
Yeah, the weekends seem to be a busy day on Facebook Marketplace, but a lot of things are gone. But my grow or die moment is kind of the reiteration of prioritizing not just your time, but also your energy when all this is happening, right? Like we're about to travel the country for 5 or 6 months, and there's a lot to do, but there's also a lot to do with personal life. There's a lot to do with Summit Chasers. There's a lot to do with our clients. There's a lot to do with all these other things too. So it's not letting like the exciting new things overtake the things that are going to make the long term create the long term success,
Yeah.
right? So it's always kind of being able to reiterate that, and sometimes you need a little bit of kick in the butt um, at times. So that was kind of a big grow or die moment, is to always consistently come back and prioritize where your time and energy is going, right? It's like a lot of people will do it. They'll do it once, like once a year, like on January 2nd. they'll
Mhm.
they'll prioritize things, and like this is what I'm going to do this year. This is how I'm going to accomplish it. But you got to do it, especially if you want to do a lot of big things like we do. It has to be a consistent, like taking inventory of, okay, this is where my time's going here. That's not where it should go. Let's put it back where it's supposed to be, and let's put the 90 or the 20-mile march. Let's put those back up at the top, sort of thing. So yeah, that was kind of the big one for me this week.
Zach, I'm going to change my grow or die. We had our planning session on Wednesday, and we talked a lot about the 20-mile march, and that's
Mm.
actually been my grow or die moment. Is like I've been thinking a lot about that. I actually explained it to my husband too, and I was just thinking about like how do I start applying that in a lot of different places? And I think that's also when you've
Mhm.
so the concept which you shared around the 20-mile march is Shackleton. Is that the adventurer?
I believe so. I
Yeah,
believe so,
okay.
but somebody will correct me. Yeah, I think if I'm wrong, but
Um,
yeah.
when he was racing with another um, adventurer to get to Antarctica, and one had like
Yeah.
all the tools and shiny, objects and things of that nature, and they were gonna go do 60 miles one day and then none the next day because they had all this technology at the time, right? In the 1700s or whatever. But the other team was just like, we're gonna do 20 miles a day, be really disciplined and consistent, and if it sucks, we're still going to get it done. If it's a great day, we're not going to overdo
Mhm.
it because we don't know what the next day is going to bring. And so
Mm.
really thinking about the concept of 20 the consistency around these 20-mile marches and just being really like um disciplined to the plan that you had set out. And so we had talked about that, about our own organization and how we're operating against our plan. But that really sat with me, and I've been carrying that 20-mile march. I've been carrying Zach in my head, being like 20-mile march, Chrissy. Um, in my
Scary.
other work, at home, on the stuff that I like really need to get done, at the house and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So I was telling Kevin about it this week.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
Love that.
concept is it's a powerful one. It's
it
a
is.
very powerful one. If I mean, if anybody, like I would, anybody who's listening, I would go out. If you don't know about it, I would go look up the concept behind the 20-mile march. Or if you want to read even more into it, go get Great by Choice by Jim Collins. He breaks it down pretty nice in there as well. But and this is kind of, and I love that story because it was kind of an ode to some of, well, a lot of the foundations to what Summit Chasers, what we kind of focus on, which is the
Mhm.
foundations. Like you said, the one that Shackleton, the team that Shackleton was racing against, they focused on all the shiny new things, all the new untested, unfamiliar things. So when they were going to the Antarctic, they tried to use horses instead of dogs. They tried to use these fancy wood chipper things, and technology back then wasn't great, right? So new things were very new. Like they broke down all the time. There's not very many people to test them. You couldn't, put ads out and get, a ton of market research done back then.
Hmm.
But they wanted to do all these fancy new things, and they had a crew that was very inexperienced going into these types of environments. Where at Shackleton's team, they did their research by going out and living with and consulting with people who live in those conditions. And they realized, okay, dogs are better than horses. These types of sleds hold up better in this type of weather. And then they planned it out. Okay, if we go 20 miles a day, we'll get there at this time, no matter what. And again, they had a solid foundation. They didn't focus on all these fancy things, right? Adrena, can you smack your mic? There you go. Um, sorry. Um,
We should
it's
get
so
we should get like sweatshirts or something made. This is Adriana Smack Your Mic. Like I feel like we
I definitely think we should. I
should.
definitely think we should.
Uh,
Let's not get a new mic and let's just do that because that's way
yeah.
funnier. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's the foundations are what ultimately is going to help you succeed in the long term, right? And then once you have these foundations, then you can start testing these fancy new things and see if they work. Because then you have the foundations to fall back onto if they don't, right? So that's a creating business foundation. So yeah, I love that. I love that story. And then the concept of the 20-mile march is just
Yeah, it's a good
it's about
one.
discipline until that turns into a habit. Once it's a habit, you feel weird not doing it. Then you can use your discipline for something else. But
Mhm.
that's why the 20-mile march is so important. Beautiful. All right, let's move on to the next part where we highlight a beloved small business that exudes great customer service. They have a great mission, and we just really want to be able to support these small businesses and draw some limelight to them. So, Chrissy, you had
Mhm.
somebody in mind for this week.
Yeah. So this week I want to highlight Positioned to Heal. And this is Gillette Crawford, and she has been working with me. We have been doing a lot of discussion. I think because this is such a cultural weekend, and I'm Irish, American, and Italian, and we're in St. Patrick's Day. And Jolette's work is really around how do you take some of those generational, like the generational aspect of your life, and how does it come forward in the work that you're doing today. And so she has just been so remarkable to work with. The things that she's able to kind of draw back to me of like, why is this showing up for you? Something that might be generational in nature, right? It's coming through like an around circle now. And she's just been so incredible. So I just had my first session of the year with her this week. And so I'm just excited to be back in the swing of things with her and just highlight all the incredible work that she's doing. And if people are looking for coaches and kind of guides, right, like I was even telling her how we play around with the word coach that feels a
Yeah.
little bit um inauthentic to what we want to
Mm-hmm.
do. And she was saying that she kind of has the same sentiment around the word, and she's like, people call her different things, like a guide or a mentor, things of that nature, right? And so yeah, she's just incredible. Her business is incredible, and what you learn about yourself and working with her is just really extraordinary. So I'd like to shout her out today. Position to Heal. She's on Instagram too.
Awesome.
Beautiful. And we will
Yeah.
link that down below. Beautiful. And last week it was Arizona Off Grid Solutions. This week it's Position to Heal. We'll put both of those links down below. Um, but yeah, we're very excited to be able to highlight these types of businesses. We should work to get some of them on here at some point,
Yeah,
just to
totally.
like jump on
Hmm.
at like we can like time it and then have them jump on at a certain point. I think we should do that,
Love
That'd
it.
be cool.
and that'd be fun. Cool, awesome. All right. So, like I said last week, we went over the first two of the Summit Laws of Leadership. And that was, it's not about how the communication affects you, it's how the communication affects them. So, quick review. Anybody want to quickly, got 30 seconds, quickly review that one? I know I'm testing y'all, but
Audrina.
So I think with that one, it's all about being mindful of what you're communicating and understand that it doesn't necessarily matter if it makes sense to you; it has to make sense to them. So read the room, be aware of the people that you're communicating to, and set your communication up so that it will be received as best as possible by the people that you're actually wanting to lead and get the outcome from.
hmm. And the great one about that one is it's kind of twofold. You understanding that communication is about the outcomes, not whether it sounds good to you. And I think a lot of leaders, a lot of people who are trying to train or coach, or even again even coaches too, they I think that sounded good. Like that there's no way that didn't make
Right.
sense to them. No way that didn't resonate with them. But you have to understand that everybody has a different map, and that leads into law number two, is that understanding everyone has a different map. And by map we mean everyone. If we're here, us four are on this live. Four. I said
Who-
four because there's three on
I
the
was like,
screen of
who
me.
is the
There's
fourth?
three. Our one person that came on is watching us on live. Um, we have the three of us are here. So if we were on a map, we'd be all three of us would be on the same X on the map. But how we got to that X is different.
Mhm.
We all grew up in different places. We had different parents. We had different experiences. We had different bullies. We had different
Hmm.
traumas. We had different mentors, different teachers, different ways of seeing the world. Right. So the map is different. The X is the same because we're in the same spot right now. They're similar, but how we got there is different. So therefore, how I intake information is gonna be different than Chrissy. The way I view the world will be different than Adrena, and vice versa. So when I'm explaining something to them, when I'm trying to communicate or get a point across to them, I have to understand that their map is different. I'm communicating for my map. We naturally communicate for our map, for us to understand things based on our recipe, so to speak, but not for them. So you have to understand that if you have a team, and if you're especially if you're a new manager, a new leader, a new business owner, whatever it is get to know your team, get to understand how they not even just like to be communicated, but how the most effective way for them to intake information and then conceptualize that information and then take action on it. And then that's the basis of your communication, of how you communicate. Some people do really well just getting an email, and they're very good at just getting that information, doing their own research, and then going out and getting the outcome. Some people need to ask questions. Some people need to have it drawn out. Some people need to use props. Some people, you need to explain it more than, I mean, probably most people need you to explain things more than once, but understand that you need to communicate things a lot. Some people do better one on one, right? So you explain things to your team, and then you need to follow up with them and say, okay, did you understand this? Was there anything that you had any questions on? Can you repeat it back to me so that like we all know that we're on the same page? Are you really well aware of the outcome that you're trying to achieve? Again, to the first law. It's not about you; it's about them. It's about the outcome. And then, in order to get that, you have to understand that everybody has a different map. They have a different way that they intake information and see the world, right? So that's kind of the first two. Now, number three, I'm going to pick on Chrissy to kind of hit on this one first because she just learned that there's the three different. Oh, you knew that there's three different ways we communicate, but it's the percentages of each one. But the third one is understand that we communicate 100% of the time. Even if I'm sitting here not doing anything, I'm communicating. If I don't answer a phone call, I am communicating to you. I'm communicating something to you.
Mhm.
So understand that we communicate 100% of the time. 7% of communication is with words. 38% is with the tone. 55% is body language. It's wild because we don't think of that, right? But really, the way we intake information is not just the way we immediately think in our head. Like if somebody is approaching me, you get feelings. Like you get a feeling of like, I don't like the way that person's walking. They could be up to something. Or, okay, that person's harmless. They're not even looking at me. They're daydreaming or whatever it is. Like there's a lot of communication that happens that we don't even notice. And that has a ton of impact on how that person could intake information that you're giving them. So talk a little bit about understand we communicate 100% of the time, law number three.
Me. You want me to go kick that
You.
off? Okay.
You kick it off.
Um, so I think communicating 100% of the time, this is what I talk a lot with like people around if you're going to have a difficult conversation with someone at work or if you want there's there's casual communications and then there's moments that really matter to people. And so I think one, understanding what are you about to go into? Is this a moment that matters for the person? Are you giving a compensation statement? Are you giving an offer for a job? Are you giving critical feedback to that person? Are you changing the role that you're in? Are you telling them they're no longer a fit for the organization? Like these are moments that are going to very much matter to the individual, right? And so you want to make sure that you're communicating in the most effective way possible because you are communicating more than just what your words are. So a lot of times it's like, did you check with them to see if this is a good time to put an invite on their calendar to have this conversation? Are they better in the morning? Did you want to wait till the end of the day? Like, are you in a public setting or are you in a private environment? I think a lot about working from home these days, right? Are people walking by me or does it look like I'm in a private place when someone's trying to have a conversation with me as their HR partner, right? And so it's like what are you the level of just like what do you have on the walls behind you? What are you wearing? What are you are you Zach was saying, are you answering a phone call? If your phone's ringing and I'm talking to Audrina, if I silence my phone so I can stay focused, I'm communicating to Audrina that she's my priority. This is a priority of what I want to focus on right now. If I'm on the that person calling me and I don't answer, I've communicated to them that they're not a priority right now, right? So um I think eye contact. Do you have your screen on, or do you have your camera off? Like all of these things are communications, and for these key moments that really matter, which to you or to the individual, I think it's like really, really important to be hyper aware of what you have going on, like around you, and also like what the person has going on around them. If you hop on a call and the person is out and about and you can tell they can't focus on this conversation, maybe tell them, you know what, Audrina, like let's wait till you get to are you in a place where you can speak privately? Are you do you want to call me back in 15 minutes when you're home? Like something along those lines, right? Is like there's a lot of things to be aware of um, when you're communicating with people. I also think not so much like the digital body language, but like there is a book actually, Zach, that I heard the author on a podcast a few months ago. I mean, this is probably 2022, or they came out with this book. It was called Digital Body Language, and they were just saying like body language in person obviously is one thing, but the digital body language is something we have to just be like super aware of because we do so many Zoom and Google Meet interactions now, and we have to actually be able to develop a whole new set
Mhm.
of body language based on the new environment that we're operating in. So yeah, I think that's what comes to mind for me about like communicating 100% of the time.
What do you think is the most important aspect of that for for a leader?
Yeah, I think really emoting your focus is really important. So, even in the casual moments, if you're going to have a casual conversation with someone, you might think it's casual, but that person's coming to their leader to have a conversation. And so,
Mhm.
a lot of how you show up helps communicate like what's the level of formality. Like if I was Audrina's boss and she's coming to me about something, the courage that she has to build
Yeah.
to even approach me with whatever type of
Mhm.
feedback or question or concern that she wants to raise, that she's already had this conversation in her head 900 times before it even gets to me because she wants to
Mhm.
make sure that she knows what to get out of this interaction. She's probably overthought like what words am I using? How is it going to be perceived that I'm even bringing this up? Like, this is something that's important to me. But if Chrissy doesn't think it's important to her, then, like, does it seem petty? So I just think all of
Mhm.
it for leaders is, I think really emoting this like focus and engagement in these moments is really critical because it's just important to know, kind of like the map of how that person has gotten there
Mhm.
to have this conversation. Um, and you can also help them feel at ease. Like you can also be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, Audrina, awesome. Thanks so much for bringing this to me. I actually didn't even know that was a thing. Like it wasn't even on my radar. So I really appreciate you bringing that to me. Like tell me if this comes up again for you." Like you can really help you really facilitate the mood in the room. And I think
Mhm.
that's what's important as a leader is to understand that that's your role in those interactions.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, something as simple as when you have somebody on your team who comes to you with a problem, something as simple as if you're sitting at your desk and they're over here, turn and face them.
Yeah.
Like that is a
Hmm.
Yeah.
huge piece of communication right there. It's you have my undivided attention. I care about what you're about to tell me. Like that's probably takes that to like another level. It's like you have my I don't care what's on my desk. I don't care about this is you. Like I want
Yeah.
to solve your problem right now. Like those little things make a huge difference. And
Yeah.
it's not it's tough because I don't say it's tough because everybody can do it. It's simple, right? It's not easy, but you have to be intentional about it. Like I need to I struggle with communicating with my team, or this is something that I need to improve on. I feel like they're not quite as engaged with me. Maybe they're not as comfortable coming to me with problems. I have to always figure out these problems afterwards when they come to a head, or somebody else has to tell me to hear it through the grapevine. Like again, we talk about, especially in we have a workshop coming up, and a big part of it is to like intentionally take responsibility for these kind
Hmm.
of things. If you're not finding things out till later on with your team, it's not that they're not telling you. Maybe they're just uncomfortable to tell you. Maybe you're not setting up the environment for them to come and tell you and be honest with you and have that open communication with you. So be aware. Am I setting up my environment in a way where they feel comfortable to even come in and talk to me? Is my door open? Are my blinds down? Are my blinds up? When they come talk to me, am I facing them, or does it look like I'm more interested in something else? Right. So yeah, it's sorry. I think somebody was about to say something.
I was, but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But
No, you're
I
okay.
think one of the last three companies I've worked at, I think the biggest way leaders communicate to their teams also is around calendar invites and calendar shifts. So
Mm,
I've had multiple instances where someone has read into the fact that a one-on-one was moved or,
yeah.
canceled, right? And a lot of leaders have executive assistants
Yeah.
or admins like running their calendars. And I think it's really important for you to set some guiding principles with your EA, if you have one, around what what meetings are flexible, and what if you move a meeting like a one-on-one with a team member, or a staff meeting, like giving a heads up as to why this is shifting, because there's a lot of anxiety, like, well, this one-on-one gets canceled all the time, so I've wanted to talk to my leader about this for the last 3 weeks, but our meeting keeps getting canceled. And I don't even know if the leader even realizes that it's being moved or canceled. And like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just it's just the fact that the EA is trying to manage like the leader's calendar and their time around the most like business critical aspects of work. But that's another way to think about too, like
Hmm.
the blinds or whatever. But right now, a lot of it is through your calendar. And so
Yeah.
don't underestimate, you know, how much communication has to happen in order to kind of manage your calendar, and who's managing your calendar, like how they need to anticipate and and be really over
Yeah.
communicative in those moments too.
Well, it's like
When
you have to control the communication,
Yeah.
because if you just move a calendar, if you move a one-on-one for them for next week, or maybe you have to cancel it this week, and you're not open and honest with them with why, because you're stuck, in the whirlwind of running the business, or if you're a high-level executive, whatever it is, you're communicating whatever's going on in their head, whatever state they're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to control the communication that they get. If they're stressed, if they maybe had a bad week last week, or they're just coming back from a pit plan or something like that, the first thing that's going to go in their head is like, I think I'm getting fired,
Mm-hmm.
or what did I do
right.
wrong? He doesn't care about me. I'm not this, whatever it is. Like you have no control of the communication. They do in their head, and they
Yep.
generally, I mean, everybody's been there before, right? Whether it's on whatever side it is, probably both. We play these weird games in our head where we immediately go to the worst case scenario. So if you don't do that with your team, that's gonna happen to them, or you're just gonna lose touch with them. Like you're just communicating that you don't care about their time, or that they're not important enough for you to keep them on their calendar, right? So it's controlling that communication. But Adrena, I wanted to get your kind of take on this, because you were a high up executive in your company, and you were 100% remote,
Yeah.
right? So how did you? What was that communication like? Like how did you control that narrative with your team? Because you grew very successfully a lot of teams there.
Yeah, I mean, when you guys were just talking about the one-on-ones and rescheduling, that was actually one of the core rules that I had set with our leadership team is you never ever cancel a one-on-one. You can reschedule if you absolutely have to, but it's one of the ones that you really, if you move that, your team member is going to think that you don't value them enough to just meet with them when you commit to it.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of our leaders, it was just once a month that we were asking them to do official one-on-ones. Like, of course, you could meet with them if you needed to throughout the month, but an official one-on-one where you really dove into their development, their career goals, maybe some stucks that they're running into, a good time for feedback. You don't cancel those. You reschedule them because they need to understand that they are incredibly important. You care about their success in their career and can set the time aside for them once a month. So that was huge. And then as far as being remote for us, it was always cameras on unless you were like super sick. Like there was sometimes where I might show up to call and be like, I'm so sorry guys, like I'm looking rough as all get out, but I still wanted to be here for you guys. So if you communicate that up front and you're open about why you might not have your camera on for that specific meeting, then that's okay. But if it's a regular occurrence, then that is also going to set the precedent for your team and that they don't need to do it. So as always, it's lead by example, be present, have your camera on, communicate up front. Um, we also had to build a lot of our relationships via Slack. So I think being really, really mindful of the way that you're communicating on Slack. It sounds silly, but like using exclamation marks, using emojis when you need to, because everybody, again, is reading it from their map. So if they're having a shitty day, they're going to read your message with a shitty tone, and they're going to take something that you said differently. So you have to be really, really mindful about the way that you're communicating things and how you want it to be received. Again, that goes back to that first law, is be mindful of how you're actually communicating, what the outcome is, and who you're communicating it to, so that it's received the best possible way. But yeah, as for body language, that one's tough. Like when you're virtual and you're just on a Zoom, it's is it 2D technically, so it's a little bit different. But one thing that you can be mindful of is, this sounds good, like the use of your hands, the tone of your voice, like leaning in. If you're really into the conversation, leaning in still on camera lets them know that you're engaged. You're not like sitting back chilling in your chair just comfortable. So there's still different body language cues that you can be mindful of when you're communicating virtually. So that would be some of my tips, I would say.
No, absolutely. And I think that that's actually was a perfect segue into law number 4, which is effective leadership communication starts when you ask what state are they in, and then what state are you in. That one's, I mean, you kind of just hit on it, but you if you have an employee, or if you're your boss, whoever it is, and you see that they're stressed, right? It's the end of the year, and they're fighting to hit some marks that they had hit. They're doing their taxes, whatever it is, and then you come to them with a problem, and you communicate in a way that just exasperates their stress, and doesn't necessarily help the situation. And it's you have to be really cognizant of, okay, what state is this person in? Are they stressed? Are they happy? Are they mad? Are they sad? Or are they something in between? All that kind of things, because then that is going to have a huge correlation on how they receive information, and then what they do with that information. So, Chrissy, how do you like? How much of a difference is it when somebody comes to you with a problem when you're really stressed? And then how big of a difference is it when you're in that like mode, like you're pumped up, you had a good week, you had lots of sleep, you had a good cup of coffee, right? And like, what's the difference? Like, what's the difference between how you intake those information in those two states?
Yeah. I think when I'm stressed and I'm kind of like, all right, let's get through this conversation. Tell me what the problem is. I immediately like size it up in my mind of how big of a deal is this, and then I am like, all right, let's rush to get this finished. You know, like let's get it solved so I can move on to the next thing.
Hmm.
That's not like usually a great experience for the person, because
Mm-hmm.
I might say on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 2. In their mind it's an 8, you know, and so
Mm-hmm.
it feels a little dismissive. It feels like I'm rushing them. Maybe it's feeling like I'm, you know, speaking on behalf of the organization in the way that I'm assessing, you know, how this is weighing on them, instead of like, no, I'm actually speaking on behalf of me in terms of like processing, like, where does this fit in my to-do list, or like how quickly can I get this solved for the person. And so I think there's just like major risk of being, you know, miscommunicating at that in that moment, because I also might be leading with the intention of like, I need to process this information very quickly because this is feeling very timely to the person that I'm speaking to, and they want a solution. And I know that I have a very short window of time to get them the resolution before I get sucked back into something else that I'm working on. And that whole thing might just be really like, you know, not delicate, you know, to the person, right? If I'm the other way, where I had like, it's a great week, I feel on top of my stuff, I got good sleep, like I'm drinking coffee, like, and I want to talk about it, I think I can easily take them from feeling like this is an 8, that is like an immediate issue, to helping them feel like, all right, let's just have a conversation. We can reframe what's on your mind to make it feel more like a 2, you know what I mean, out of a 10. And we have a clear path forward, and we're going to do this together, you know? And so, like, there's just a totally different, it's like my goal and the outcome I want to drive is the same in both scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
but how I go about it, you know, is different, right? Depending on where I'm starting from. And it's a totally different experience for that person. Like, that person might be like, wow, thank God I came to Chrissy, the second version, because she's really in control of the situation. She has a lot of experience with this topic. Like, she knows how to navigate this in a way that's going to de-escalate and be like, really get me to an outcome that feels not like a major escalation or risk for me as an employee of the organization. So
Mm-hmm.
I really try to be like version 2 even when I'm feeling like version 1, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just better for everyone, and that's how I communicate 100% of the time in that environment. So that's what I really try to stay conscious of.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is important for, many aspects, many relationships,
Hmm.
boss to employee, business owner to partner, partner to partner,
Yeah.
right? Life partner and business partner. Uh, because you can, like you said, they're coming to you and they think it's an 8, right? They're stressed, right? But if you don't read that, if you don't ask that question, okay, wait, what state are they in? Okay, they look like they seem like they're stressed. They're talking a little bit quicker. Their hands are moving a lot more, right? Again, you're reading their body language, and then you also realize, okay, what state am I in? Like, I'm stressed out right now. Like, I have so much stuff going on. So maybe is this the right time to even have this conversation? Or, okay,
Hmm.
I need to calm down and have this conversation in a different way. Like, I need to check myself, right? And then again, if, like you said, if they come at you with an 8, but you're good, you know now. Okay, let's sit them down. Let's have a longer form conversation. Let's dive into the root. Why do you think this is an 8? What have you tried already? Has this happened before? Right? What's the upside? What's the downside? Sort of thing. Okay, this really seems like a 3. What do you think? So it's extremely important to know that. But there's, Adrina, I'd like to get your opinion on kind of how is this, like, kind of jumping outside of business? How is this so important in like outside of work relationships, like life relationships?
Yeah, so I think that it can be a relationship saver in a lot of cases, when you're communicating with your partner. Even if you're communicating with kiddos, like, pay attention. Obviously, with them, they're a lot easier to read as far as what state they're in. They could be in tears, they could be stressed and just like panicked about something. But if you can be present enough to identify the state that they're in, identify the state that you're in, that'll allow you to just navigate that situation a lot better. Also, I think it goes back to what I mentioned last week is a lot of what you'll see the same thread across these laws is being able to pull yourself out of the situation and almost look at it from another perspective and knowing that it's much bigger than you. And if you can open up your perspective to take in all others, the way that you're going to communicate is naturally going to be different. So I think that it can it can save like a fight from happening, really. Like, let's talk about partner to partner, whether that be spouse, significant other, fiance, whatever. If if i I'll put it for Zach and if I come to Zach and he can immediately tell that I'm stressed, he's usually very good at picking up on that, and he will change his state to be able to best meet mine and help, like, talk me down. So in that situation, I've seen it firsthand where instead of us both freaking out on each other, the other one will usually shift into a state that is going to be more complementary to the one that is showing up in the panic, stress, overwhelm, whatever it might be. And then you're allowed to able to navigate those conversations a lot easier. So
Mm.
it can be used in so many different aspects with friends too. If something's going on in a friendship and um, maybe they're really upset and you want to be there for them, recognize if you're in a state like, let's go with girl chat. Um, your girl is having a problem with their relationship, their man. They come to you. If you just got in an argument with your man too, you guys are going to be sitting there man hating for an hour. And it's like, that is not going to be productive. That is not going to help either of you in your situation. So maybe don't have that conversation right now. Maybe be like, hey, girl, I want to be there for you so much. And I completely understand the frustration, but let's chat about this when we're both in a little bit of a better place. So I think it just allows you to be much more aware of how you show up in conversations and wanting to get the best outcome for the person that you're talking to.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just reminding yourself that it's about the outcome that you're trying to achieve,
Hmm.
right? Like, do we want to fight? Like, is that the outcome?
Right.
Is to fight? Is
Oh,
the outcome to not hit the goal? of, or the initiative of our team or our company, right? So you have to put that above everything else, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in another week as kind of one of the other laws of leadership. But it's again being really aware. Okay, well, what's the outcome that we're trying to achieve here? Is the states that we're in compatible or useful to create that outcome? An employee comes to you, they have an issue, it's an 8 out of 10. The goal is for them to be successful in their role and to accomplish what they need to accomplish for the betterment of the company or their team and their family. So as me sitting here being stressed, just going right at them, kind of dismissing their perceived importance of this problem, is that better for the outcome, or is that just better for my mental health at this very moment? Is it better for my perceived priority list that I have, right? And that's where a big part of this one is understanding that feelings are facts. Now, that is not to say that all feelings are correct. I don't know how to say this politically correct, but there's some people who just make
You
decisions
don't
based on
necessarily have
feelings.
to agree. You don't
Yeah,
necessarily
you
have
don't
to
have to
agree
agree
with
with
how
it.
they feel, but you have to
Yeah,
acknowledge the fact that that is how they feel in that moment. I think that's the most
yeah.
politically correct way to put it.
Thank you. Okay,
As you're
good.
gonna save
Yeah,
him back from himself.
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, oh, it was a good run, everybody. It was a good run. But yeah, no, 100%. It's not whether is it right or wrong. That's not what matters. But
It
the way
doesn't
they feel is
matter.
the way they feel. It's a fact that they feel like this right now.
Yeah.
Now we have to utilize. This is what we have to work with right now. These feelings that are going through this person and myself right now are facts. But we need to use this situation to still achieve the outcome. That has not changed.
Mhm.
So we need to take that into consideration 100% of the time. You can't just be, as a leader, you can't be like, oh, just suck it up. You're sad right now. You're crying. Like, who
Right.
cares? Like, we have a thing to do. No. Now I need to cater the way I'm handling the situation based on their feelings, because that's what I have to work with right now. Like that, it is a fact, right? So you have to take. If you want to be successful, again, it's about the outcome. It's not about proving a point, right? And that's the
Yeah.
big thing about a leader. And if you go back to a few weeks ago, it might have been a month ago now, when we talked about the 5 levels of leadership, right? If we get a lot of these leaders who are just leaders based on title, right, and they feel entitled to lead, then they're just like they're just in it for themselves for a lot of this. They just want to hit the goal. They want to get the accolades. They want to get the promotion or whatever it is. They don't necessarily even care about the outcome, right? But you have to take that into consideration. You have to meet people where they're at.
Zach, at Snap, we had uh, kind of a ritual at the beginning of every team meeting, and we would just start with a check-in, and we'd say, "Okay, who's on the call? Let's do a check-in. What's going on for you right now?" Do you know what I mean? And like everyone was able to kind of just in 2 seconds be like, "Oh, I've been partying all weekend for St. Patrick's Day. I'm I'm focused. I'm ready to go, but I'm exhausted." And they're like, "All right."
Yeah.
And then the next one would be like, I'm feeling great. Like I didn't hit any traffic this morning. I dropped my kids off at school. They're all their first day back in school. Like two of them had a fever. We have plans this weekend. We're like, I'm fired up, like really in a good place for this week. Someone else might be like, look, I'm really dealing with like an ill parent that I've been my parent had a rough night. I'm really stressed out, like whatever happened, right? Or, something like that. So we would kind of get a gauge of like where everyone is. And a lot of times we'd adjust the agenda, right? Like
Yeah.
if we're like, all right, are we all in on, like, can we go through our full agenda? Or do we want to maybe like shift topics around, or maybe spend more time talking about less things because people are just either you're feeling
Yeah.
foggy or this one's like distracted a little bit, right? Things like that. So I think that's a good way for you also, feelings are facts, and also just people are bringing in feelings about a lot of things that aren't necessarily even work related, but your job is to, like you were saying, is to get to the outcome of what you need for the business. But I am someone who, we get into team meeting, I'm like, all right, here's the agenda, here's everything I need to update you guys on,
Yeah.
let's go. And everyone's like, huh, Chrissy, how was your weekend? And I'm like, oh my God, sorry everyone. Let's just stop for a second. Like, you know what I mean? Like this,
Yeah.
let's check in, with everyone. But it's kind of good for my team in the past and now, like they'll check me to be like, Chrissy, you're on an 11 out of 10. Like, this is our first meeting of the week. Like, we just need a minute to calibrate, and say hi to everyone. So I was like, all right, that's good to know. But you definitely want to just be uh, aware of like how to shift your agendas or your
Mhm.
cadences or your rituals based on how people are feeling too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not to say if those feelings get in the way consistently of achieving the outcome,
Right.
and that's a
That's
different,
another situation.
that's a whole other situation. But if you've exhausted your, again, being intentional about, okay, this person's not achieving this outcome that we want. How did I communicate it to them? How was this communicated to them? Was it clear? Right? Did I lay out the roles and responsibilities? Did we lay out how? Did I make sure that they understood how to achieve this thing? Did I make sure that I was cognizant of what state they were in and what state I was in when I had the communication with them? And if you have exhausted those things and they still can't get the outcome, then okay, they're just not the right person for the role.
Right.
So again, I just want to throw that out there because it's not to say like you don't sacrifice that for the outcome,
Yep.
right? Consistently, but you do have to do everything that you can do. You have to take responsibility for that, right? And once you do, then you have to take responsibility for maybe I hired the wrong person. Let's look at how we hired the person. Let's do an audit on how we hired them. Let's make sure that we get information on the exit interview, right? And again, take responsibility for it because if you don't, then you're not going to improve it, and then the chances of that happening again are much higher.
Yep.
Right. Beautiful. All
Yeah.
right. Before we end this beautiful discussion, does anybody have anything to add? Anything they want to announce?
It's Cajun Scout's first birthday today.
It is
Oh.
our puppy's first birthday today. I was actually hoping to. Scout was over here. I was hoping to introduce him to everybody and then also announce he's getting his balls cut off tomorrow. So that's his birthday present. Sorry,
feelings
dude.
feelings are not facts in that case.
Oh,
Sorry.
so
No,
bad.
I mean it
The
sucks,
outcome
but
is more important. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a
Yes.
handful. So we need him to. He's had him for a year. He's a good healthy boy. So it's time. So yeah, he's gonna
Time
go.
to say goodbye.
Time to say goodbye. Yeah, there'll be a little bit less of him, but hopefully that'll calm him down. He's kind of crazy. We think that he's part. Actually, that'd be kind of fun to get a poll. Maybe I'll do that on LinkedIn, or maybe that's probably not LinkedIn. That's
That'd
not
be
the
fun.
greatest place to do it. Maybe on Facebook
Probably
of
not.
what we think
Yeah.
he is, because he's. I go back and forth between like husky and like American Bully mix, or like husky Anatolian mix, or Australian Shepherd Anatolian mix or something like that. But I don't know what I mean, he's a good, but he's scout. Like at the end of the day, who cares? But it'd be really interesting. Like I don't know what he is.
Yeah.
No idea. He's crazy though. Like he doesn't. He listens
Oh
pretty
yeah.
good, but he needs to get some of that attention span back. And yeah, cutting him off will be able to help with that. But other than that, a little update on us. So like I said, like you can't see the bookshelf if you didn't see the beginning. So we're getting close to getting out of here. We're getting the trailer now on Wednesday.
Hmm.
Oh, hopefully, I'm actually planning on doing some of these in the trailer to start practicing kind of how we can, or our setup and that kind of thing in there, and kind of get used to that vibe, so to speak. And
I'm
but
so
yeah, no,
proud
things
of
are
you.
moving. So as far as when this is all like the documentation of all this is going to come out on YouTube. So right now, because things are happening kind of slowly, like us selling stuff and getting the trailer, things are happening a little bit slower right now. So we're just kind of giving it some time for everything to kind of catch up. So then we'll start releasing some of that content probably the next week or two, probably at the beginning of April. I'm assuming maybe very end of March, beginning of April, that'll start to come out. So then eventually, as we do get out there, the content gap will start to kind of shrink a little bit, and then we'll be more week to week at that point. But
Yeah.
starting probably the end of March, a lot of that content will be out, and you'll get to see all the stuff that we've been up to at the National Home Builders Association, International Builder Show, IBS, and yeah, so we're really excited about all that stuff to
Cage,
start
if you
coming
could say
out.
hi.
There's Cage. Happy first birthday, Cage. He gets to keep his balls.
He does.
He gets to keep. He gets to keep them. Beautiful, everybody. All right. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with us. And again, we're very excited for everything that's coming up. I hope you got a lot out of it. Comment some of your takeaways. Comment how you're going to use some of this information to adjust the way that you communicate with your team, your spouse, your kids, whoever it is, business partner. We'd love to hear some of the feedback and some of the success stories from some of the information that we're giving out. But with that being said, until next time, everybody, keep chasing your next summit.